All right, so it's just some of our customers listed here. Federal agencies, there's state agencies, the Nature Conservancy, UNR. We sell to restoration firms and engineering firms, certainly ranches and farms around the state, and private landowners, all looking to improve their landscapes and restore them to a more natural scape. So this is just a broad swath of some of our most recent customers, and but we're getting new customers all the time. The Washoe Nursery just opened for the season this last weekend, and we had a huge amount of new customers. So it's exciting to see how many people are interested in native plants and appropriate for our environment. Okay, so a little bit of an overview. These are Pinus monophylla, our pinyon pine, one of our state trees, and so we're growing those. And we started We started seeds a couple of years ago. We did a nice seed collection from a couple of different areas, including Carson and Austin, and so we're trialing seed from different sources to see if there's any difference in how they grow and how they respond to the conditions. But I have to say that the Washoe Nursery had a reputation of not being able to grow conifers at all. And, I'm really taking that on as a challenge. So you can see some of those are suffering a little bit, but I took a close look recently at our Jeffreys and our pinions, and I'm really happy with how well they're responding. They're only a little over a year old, but they do look very healthy. So anyway, briefly about the enterprise budget, and I'm bringing this up because Maddie Hood brought this up a few weeks ago at the Rare Plant Workshop, that we have some challenges with our nursery program. So I don't want to get into that too deeply, but basically we were established by statute as an enterprise budget. So we're self-funded. We don't receive any state funding for our operations. All the activities that we have and the salaries and all of the expenses that we have as a program come from our sales. So that's the number one reason why we try to push as much as possible to get people more interested in native plants. So we have public sales at both of those nurseries and restoration sales. We do sell some seed, mostly that's contracted seed. It's not seed that we're collecting anymore. We're too busy growing plants. But and we do gather seed from the landscape, various parts of the state, so that we're getting seed from the source that's most appropriate. But things like deferred maintenance, I learned that term when I came to the nursery. It just means that anything that is maintained, some things have to be deferred. We have to, since we don't have the money for everything, we have to wait and we have to save up our pennies until we're able to find a funding source. And the same thing goes with our staff and our conservation crews who do a bunch of work for us. All of that is funded that way. And so for many, many years, that budget has just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. I have to say that the native plant business is not a lucrative business, but it is an important one. And so that's why we value what we do, and NDF values what we do and wants to continue. But when I started in 2022, there was something called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, that was passed by the Biden administration for various infrastructure projects and jobs throughout the country. And part of that was a small provision for state nurseries. Now, not every state has a nursery. Nevada is lucky to still have one when other states around us have lost theirs. And so it's even more of a mission for us to keep it going because of the value of that. So we have received a couple of rounds of that funding. We've built a new greenhouse, and we've been spending some of that money on our existing infrastructure to take care of that long list of deferred maintenance. Especially water. Water is like our number one challenge. We're on a well in Washoe, and I think we're on a well down in Las Vegas as well. And so we're trying to make sure that that water is good enough quality. One of the reasons why we have a challenge growing conifers is the water quality itself. So I know that we have this some information about supporting the nurseries. There's a few ways that you can support the nurseries. Certainly, there's a QR code on this sheet that that was provided by Maddie with a link to being able to write letters to Congress or to our legislature. But more importantly, I think the number one way to support us is just to buy our plants. Now, like I said, not everything is a native, but so we're somewhere between 60 and 70% native plants. The rest of them are very carefully selected to be appropriate for Nevada, water conserving plants. We don't propagate invasive species or anything like that. We don't propagate things that we don't feel are appropriate for our environment. There were a few things in the past that we provided that we no longer do. Probably the number one that comes to mind is tamarisk. I could not believe that tamarisk was on that list back then, but I don't even know how long ago that was. But there's a place in Washoe that I drive by every day where they have a nice hedge of tamarisk, and I'm sure that came from the Washoe Nursery. But I digress. Another way to support us is to volunteer. If anybody wants to get their hands in the dirt in the nursery and help us with our propagation efforts, we certainly will entertain that. I have a small group of volunteers that help once in a while, and we always would love more. Basically, we just have to work around our conservation crew schedule in order to have volunteers. But I should say about that conservation crew, it's a long-standing program with us, an agreement with the forestry, with the Division of Forestry and the Department of Corrections. And so we have a crew of somewhere between 6 and 12 inmates that come out and work with us, and hopefully developing good skills, hopefully turning their lives around by working with us. And we really appreciate their hard work and certainly their muscles as they do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. That program is, it has its ups and downs over the years, but it's still going on and going strong. But that's another reason why we ask you to be a little bit vocal because it's just another expense that we have to provide that program. All right, so the Las Vegas Nursery, located in Floyd Lamb Park in Tule Springs, North Las Vegas. They specialize in Mojave species, as well as other non-native species. Like I said, mesquite and creosote are probably their number one and number two plants, but they also grow several things that are, since they have a longer growing season, they ship some of that up to us in Washoe to sell at other times. Oh, I guess I didn't finish this statement, but native and non-native tree species, especially since the longer growing season, Arizona ash was one that I wanted to mention, but also Joshua trees are something that people ask for. That's very carefully regulated, but we do grow those, various yucca, and you know, I have to say I'm not as familiar with everything down there, even though I love the Mojave, but I have not spent as much time identifying plants down there. We have two controlled greenhouses as well as outside space where the plants are sold. And yeah, go and visit that nursery anytime you're around Las Vegas. It's a gem. That park is a gem too. It's continuously being developed around it, but it's one of those places that is still well preserved under the shadow of Mount Charleston, and not too far from the new Ice Age Fossil State Park. So I'm not going to read through this, but this is their list of species that they're currently selling. You see natives and non-natives on here, but shrubs, trees, flowers, and grasses, at both nurseries, we specialize in doing all of those. Everybody comes for different reasons, different needs, and we try to accommodate all of those things. At the Washoe Conservation Nursery, we're located in Washoe Valley at about 5,060 feet and specializing in Great Basin plants as well as Sierra Nevada species. So we now have 3 climate-controlled greenhouses. One of them is just about to be opened. It's the newest one that's actually a high tunnel, but we're excited to be able to utilize that space for growing things a little bit larger size to accommodate the trees that people are asking for, and certainly some of the shrubs. Plants are grown from seed stock, seeds, cuttings, or bare root stock. Anything that's not a native, sometimes we have to purchase those from other nurseries. But again, 60 to 70% of those are native and are grown from seed or stock from our environment. I don't know if these numbers are exactly accurate. That's a quote from one of our promo materials that I need to update, but 136 species is on our list. And at any given time, it might be more like maybe 100 species that are available. So again, trees, we have a fair amount of deciduous trees, which are certainly not, most of them are not native, but they do really well in our environment, and people do need shade trees. And since we do open up to all types of landscapes, they're very important. And we do some natives like cottonwoods and alders and various species of willow, shrubs like desert peach, bitterbrush, Rhus trilobata, oak leaf sumac, grasses, a variety of grasses, especially the wild rye and wheatgrass and forbs, of course. Those are the things that sell out the most. Everybody wants some good flowers, good things for pollinators, which I'll talk a little bit more about. So our main purposes: post-fire rehabilitation, creating windbreaks for properties and landscapes, wetland and riparian restoration, which is very big with the restoration agencies. Wildlife and pollinator habitat has become sort of the buzzword, so to speak. Everybody wants to have more of that in their landscapes, both at home, but also in the general landscape. So I've been working on propagating a few more of the forbs that I value and really appreciate that I've come to love over time. Certainly, that's the one part of hiking that first caught my eye besides the trees was the wildflowers, and I really like to watch the succession of blooming in the sagebrush environment. And we have such amazing diversity of flowers. It's just it's mind-blowing. So something that's become more important to us in recent years: preservation of biodiversity, preservation of species that are rare. So I'll talk about that one. First off, preservation of biodiversity. So Maddie Hood, I mentioned her. She's our rare plant biologist, and she has taken on a couple of different projects in terms of propagation of rare plants, or at least the preservation of them in our landscapes. That one right there is Ariantha carcinensis. Carcinensis, yes. Carson Valley monkey flower. I was so happy when I finally was able to find that one this year. And we're working on hopefully a seed increase project for that one, growing some of those out at the Washoe Nursery to increase the amount of seed that we have. It is not listed yet. It might be destined for it, but in the meantime, we're going to do what we can to help it get out there and propagate. So partnerships and collaboration are very important to us, working with state agencies and non-profit organizations in order to definitely promote these things in our environment. And we also have a couple of other projects that are in the works right now. In Southern Nevada, hopefully we're going to create a seed increase project for some of the wildlife recreation areas down there. They want to preserve some of the species that they can't find the seed available. So we're working on grants to build some beds that we will be able to grow some more of those very unique species down there. Post-fire rehabilitation, I don't have to belabor the point, but wildfire is certainly a reality for us in the West in general, in Nevada in particular. And even though it's a necessary and important part of our natural landscape, it is very destructive, and our wildfires have become bigger and bigger every year. So the ability of the land to recover from that, sometimes we need to do things to help that land recover. And so issues like flooding and erosion, exotic weeds, which we can't keep up with, but we're trying to beat them out with native species and restore the ecosystem structure and function and the species diversity that's out there. Of course, cheatgrass being the number one that comes back after fire, and our the seed bank, which is part of the nursery program, we are promoting native species in our seeding efforts to hopefully outcompete that cheatgrass or get ahead of it so that we can get our landscape back and not have it be so flammable. We certainly respect the cycle of fire, and NDF has learned more and more about how to use prescribed fire in order to prevent some of those larger wildfires from happening. Windbreaks, just wanted to mention another technique in terms of what we promote at the nursery. A lot of people come in and ask us for windbreaks. And so we between the trees and the shrubs that we grow, we are able to help people construct nice diversity in their windbreaks, so that there's multiple layers, there's diversity in height, diversity in species, and a nod to having things that produce something for them, whether it's something that they can harvest for themselves or is just a benefit to wildlife. Things like Ribes aureum, which is golden currant, certainly Amelanchier species, the service berries, and we have so many different berry producing types of shrubs that we try to include in there. I have to say in Washoe Valley in particular, since we have such diversity in birds, it's also a great way to see how the birds respond to some of these plants in the landscape, and it gives us a great way to recommend them to our customers. So this is just a diagram here on some of the techniques for windbreaks. I know I've seen windbreaks over in different places where it's only just one row of trees. Certainly we know that that's not enough, and having a way to break up the wind in multiple levels so that the velocity is reduced, and protecting structures and protecting people's homes and properties. Wetland and riparian restoration, I've been told and there is a picture of that here down in the lower right of our sod, wetland sod production. I have yet to do this. It's a challenge that I'd like to take on sometime, but luckily there's not a lot of demand for it right now. So I have more time to concentrate on growing other things. In fact, with those ponds, it's just basically a space that we would line with plastic to grow sedges and juncus, and to just have some good diversity in a sod mix that will go out on the landscape. But in the meantime, we're going to dedicate that area to the Carson Valley monkey flower when we start that project. But we grow about 6 or 8 different varieties of willows, trees and shrub willows. Certainly other wetland species, the poplars, the cottonwoods, dogwood, those kinds of things that we're promoting, as a lot of people do have even seasonal wetland areas that they're trying to rehabilitate. Okay, so wildlife habitat. Certainly, this is something that a lot of people value, and we're trying to promote as much as we can, that there is so much diversity in animals and plants. and we want to create a nice multi-layered environment. So providing food, cover, and nesting for birds, birds, mammals, butterflies, bees, reptiles. We can't see it here, but there is a monarch butterfly. We have a great diversity of milkweed that we're growing 3 different species of milkweed in Washoe. I think we have maybe 3 different species down in Las Vegas. And so we're trying to get that one out there as much as possible, along with other of the pollinating plants and plants that are benefiting wildlife in general. So we're encouraging diversity in planting, obviously, so that we're satisfying a multiple species in the landscape. Right now, the firecracker penstemon is blooming like crazy, and I have seen the hummingbirds coming around for that one. Pollinator habitat, yes, we want to make sure that we're providing for the pollinators. So a diverse palette of plants that are blooming from, say, end of February or March in through the fall. And we can do that with the diversity of species as we know by just exploring the landscapes. And also taking into account the different layers of the landscape, insects that are ground dwelling as well as those that are up high. And another thing that I am trying to promote more of is, since this is the way I like to garden, is to keep things wild. And so we encourage people to leave things on the landscape longer and not clean up before the fall is over, so that a lot of those overwintering insects have a place to live and to overwinter and to survive into the spring. So using different landscape features in order to make a multi-layered landscape. And it might be so obvious to some people, but because I came to this career through the back door, you know, a lot of these things I just learned on my own, sometimes by mistakes. I know that when I first moved to my home, where I live now, we had some trees that needed some pruning. I pruned those trees and left the piles of sticks there over the winter. And at first I was like, yeah, I need to take care of those sticks. I'll get to them eventually. But then when the winter came and the snow came, we saw that all the birds loved it in there. And so we wanted we valued that. And instead of taking them away, I kept them around for a couple seasons and slowly changed my landscape into more of a natural environment. And it is just an urban lot or a suburban lot. But you know, I like the diversity that we have on there. And it certainly shows all the time. And it's as any of you who have that in your gardens at home, you can see that there's a lot of value to that. So just a little briefly, I'll talk about some of the pollinator plants that we provide at the nursery. I mentioned Rus trilobata, the oak leaf sumac is or skunk bush. One of my favorite shrubs, and I didn't know it very well until I came to the Washoe Nursery, but it is widespread across the West, and it is something that's actually was used for basket making as well. I know willows get all the press for that, but sumac was also very important for basket making, and it produces berries that people like to make tea out of, from what I understand. I haven't tried it yet, but I'd like to try it sometime. Silver buffalo berry is another one that a lot of people ask us for Russian olive, and I like to say, yeah, you can buy a Russian olive, but why not try this buffalo berry? It is a little bit shorter than Russian olive, but it's great for a windbreak, and it's you know, also produces great berries. It's drought tolerant. It's great for birds. I think it's one of the number one at the nursery for the bird diversity that lives in there. So it provides food and cover for them. For a more riparian area, the arroyo willow, which we also have in abundance at the nursery, and seems to be very popular for restoration projects, in addition to some of the other willow species. I think it's just the size of the arroyo willow lends itself to providing multi-layers of habitat. Some of the forbs that are important to us, certainly penstemons, um, uh, palmarii, eatonii, uh, um, spictus, yes, strictus, and what's the other one? Speciosus. Those are the four that we grow, but we also have a couple others that we've dabbled with. Depending on what projects are going on, some species that are more higher elevation we have done in the past. You know, that's probably one of our number one sellers in terms of pollinator plants. And a close second would be globe mallow. We have a little debate over which species of globe mallow we're growing at the nursery right now. I tend to think it's ambigua, or maybe it's not ambigua. Do we think it's ambigua? um, and I'm yeah, and there could be some hybridization there as well. We have a field full of globe mallow in the back, and it has spread by seed around the site. So, you know, maybe we need to take a trip out there and try to see what people think. And that one is just starting to bloom right now, so I'm very excited about that one. Prunus virginiana, chokecherry. That's another one that's great for the birds. If you don't have this in your landscape, it's a nice tall shrub, and I do have in my mind that I'd like to try to make some wine out of the cherries sometime. Does it?
Yeah, makes good wine.
Well, I have to compete with the birds to get that, and you know, I guess I value the birds a little bit more, so I let them have them. But one of these days, I'll get to that. Okay, and then we've got the narrow leaf and showy milkweed, Asclepias species, and we're also confertifolia is another one that I've tried with some luck getting that one to sprout. I think there are maybe 4 or 5 different species that are native to this area, and a couple of other different ones that are native down south. And the monarch to me, it goes back to when I was a kid. Probably many people, you know, explored their landscapes and learned about monarchs. I gathered caterpillars when I was a kid and took them to school, and we hatched the butterflies and released them. And you know, I have lots of great memories doing that. So it just, you know, it's come full circle for me to be able to provide this for the landscape and continue to help that species to continue to thrive. Desert sweet, fernbush, is that Chamabataria?
Yes. One of the best pollinator plants.
One of the best pollinator plants, yes. And we only have a couple small ones at the nursery, but I'm definitely trying to promote that one more and more all the time. Felusia, parva, yes. Apache plume. I love this one. It's one of the first native plants that I put in my landscape, and I didn't really understand it at the time. I kind of put it in the middle of the backyard. Most people would put it as a background plant, but it's front and central. And when we look out the backyard, it's great habitat for quail, great habitat for other birds, and it is a long bloomer. It blooms from pretty soon. It'll start blooming all the way through summer. And so it's a bee haven, and technically a Mojave native, but it does very well up north as well. Of course, a lot of yellow in our landscapes. So goldenrod, we have canadensis as well as California goldenrod. I can't remember the name of the species name. Eriogonum is a very important plant that is very popular for us. And one that sometimes can be an easy sell or a tough sell, depending on the crowd, is rubber rabbit brush or green rabbit brush. And when I first moved here, and I think that was a very stunning plant to me. When all the other things were finished blooming, you still have this one blooming in the landscape in September, even into October. And so, you know, for those late pollinators, it's a great nectar source, and leading into the dormant part of the season. Also, grasses we can't forget. Great Basin Wild Rye definitely being one of our most important grasses that we promote, and Indian rice grass, Achnatharum, being our state grass, and it's a little bit less flashy. Some people come and ask us for pampas grass or something similar. I like to lead them over to the wild rye, but for a more subtle grass that I think has so much value to our landscape, is the Achnatharum, and alkali sacaton a little bit more for the south, but it does well up here as well, and it's a great grass that seems to spread well when you plant that one. So grasses being the first succession plant after disturbance, a great way to hopefully combat some of those invasive weeds. You know, the diversity in our bunch grasses and their value on the landscape in helping to provide that succession for some of the other shrubs to come back later after wildfires and disturbances. So that said, as I am also the manager of the seed bank, we have a history of putting non-natives back out on the landscape after fire. I definitely push the native grasses as much as possible. Crested wheatgrass was used for many years, and you see it linger for way too long out on the landscape. And so I definitely discourage it, although there are plenty of agencies that still use it, depending on the situation. We can't ignore some of the tougher conditions that are out there in Nevada that we're combating. So even though I like to think of myself as a purist when it comes to providing natives, some of the non-natives do have some value. I hope nobody shoots me on the way out of here. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. If anybody wants to contact me, here's my contact information. Any questions about anything that I've talked about, or want to just get into discussion about things, if you want to volunteer, or if you want to learn more about the nursery, please take down this information and contact me anytime. And I guess I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
If you're happy to stop sharing the screen at the top,
Anybody here has
click on
questions?
OK and stop sharing, then that way, yeah, people can see, and then you can see if there's any chats or anything. But yes, come to the front if you have a question.
My question is, can you remind me of the dates and times that the nursery is open for people who want to push out there?
That's a darn good question.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that. So the Southern Nursery is open Monday through Friday, and I believe it's 8 to 4 or 8 to 3. The Northern Nevada Nursery, which is only open a little bit more select, through the month of May, we're open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 9:30 to 3. And we take appointments over the summer, and then we pick it back up again in the fall, basically moving along with the best times to plant. Thanks. The whole month of May. Yes, thanks for asking.
I have a question. I remember when we came and took a tour a couple of years ago, you were talking about pest control in your greenhouses.
Oh, yes.
Using the alyssum. It was alyssum, wasn't it?
It was, and I meant to put a slide in there about that, so thank you for asking about that. Yes, I'm still using alyssum, but I'm also looking at some other, I'm trying to incorporate native annuals into that mix. So just having a diversity of a few different flowering species in the greenhouse it's worked really well for me. I always have ladybugs that have come into the greenhouse. I always have those parasitic wasps coming in, taking care of aphids. There are a couple of different syrphid flies that I see coming around all the time. And even in the middle of winter, if I have something in there that's flowering, I disturb some of those insects flying around. So I know I'm doing something right, but I definitely want to do more with annuals. And so this is where my learning curve needs to go next. I need to learn more about some of the annual flowers that will help me with that.
Why is it annuals that are pest control? I don't understand.
Well, mainly because of the way they flower, and I guess there are some. I mean, there are some perennials that work as well, but I think because annuals flower quicker, and perennials seem to have a shorter window for when they flower. But again, if we're also having different diversity of plants in the greenhouse, I think it's just the quick response that I get from annuals. And alyssum being the one that I've used the most, that I was used to using at the greenhouse project. So I'm looking at yellow, white. Those are the colors of flowers I'm looking at the most.
Yeah. I was wondering if you keep track of your propagation protocols, and if you do, where can you find them?
Okay. We don't actually publish them. At least for the most part, we don't publish them. We have them in spreadsheets at the nursery. But we are working on some species that there are no protocols for. That was another species I was going to mention, is Tahoe yellowcress that we've grown for the last couple of years for restoration up at Tahoe, and that has been trial and error. So you know, we're going to publish some of that on ranger.net, rngr.net is the place that we go for that kind of information.
Cool. On top of that, if I were to contact you, would you be able to share some propagation protocols like before?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I have a kind of follow-up. You were talking with your conifers.
Yes.
Part of your issue is the quality of your water, but you were trying seeds from different places. Are you trying different soil mixes, different growing mixes? Because you're talking about alkali plants and acid plants and different plants.
Right. Yes. So I have started to diversify our soil mixes a little bit more. And I do have a couple of different things that I've been trialing. The conifers, you know, I think as long as we can keep the soil from getting too alkaline, then, you know, that's mainly what we're trying to do. So using, you know, some local materials from the foothills, you know, I guess decomposed granite is one of the elements that we're using. Yeah.
And do you do any inoculation with mycorrhizae or anything
For
like that?
some species, yes.
So thinking maybe for the conifers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm looking more into that. Looking for good sources of that.
Right.
So some of that is, you know, gathering it if we can, because we really want to have the local as much as possible for what we're trying to grow. But even still, I early on tried to use, so we're growing some lupin, and lupin definitely needs to be inoculated. So what I wasn't able to locate a good species of the bacteria for lupin. I ended up using something that's for garden peas, and so far it's working. Yeah, it's the same family. So I'm assuming that, you know, yeah. So far things are working out, but I'm always looking for sources for that. It's not always easy to find, and the mycorrhiza as well. So a little bit about the products that we try to use in the nursery. There's a lot of variation in some of those, and some companies are promoting products that I don't think are as quality as they should be, or not as diverse in the types of bacteria and fungus that are most valuable. So that's a trial that we're continuing to try, figure out what's best.
I did see a question float up that's gone away asking for the location of the Washoe Nursery.
Oh, yes. The Washoe Nursery is located on East Lake Boulevard, just south of the turnoff from Old 395. So at the north end of Washoe Valley, just south of the Little Washoe Lake.
We have a question down here.
Yes.
Hi, so I'm in SoCal and I actually work in a native nursery.
Hopefully I can turn you up because I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Wait a minute.
Why did I say SoCal? I'm in Southern Nevada and
There we go.
I work at a nursery here and I was wondering if you know specifically what soil mixes you would use in the nursery in Southern Nevada, in Vegas.
I am not sure. I know that basically they're mixing their own, using, mostly some peat moss and perlite. And I think they've also used some pumice, things like that. So I think the pumice is something that we're learning more and more is really, really helpful in our soil mixes. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Welcome. Yeah. We have dabbled with some commercial mixes. In fact, in Washoe, we use it's not a commercial mix, it's a special mix that we order from a company in California. But basically, I'm looking for more using a base mix that we can tailor for the use of different plants. Because I've noticed how certain plants respond to different conditions. The Eriogonum does not like wet soil, it needs to dry out. Salvia dorii is another one that needs to dry out. So certain things, that we can see how they respond over time. I'm really focused on the plant quality and how they thrive in the nursery setting. Of course, native plants don't want to be contained, but at the same time, if we're going to promote them and get them out into the landscape, we have to give them good enough conditions to continue. And in a nursery setting, it's definitely very wet. So the balance of moisture, the balance of organic matter in the soil, all those things are very, very key for us to keep on working on.
So
Thank you.
how are you preventing damping off?
How to prevent dampening off?
How are you doing it?
How are we doing it?
Airflow?
Yes, definitely increasing the airflow. I think some of our systems in the greenhouses need to be fixed up and improved. And so we definitely use a swamp cooler, a wet wall in the back of the greenhouse, but using the circulation fans is definitely helping to keep that air at the right moisture level. Of course, with the diversity of species, some things are more of a challenge than others.
Do you ever try granular top dressing, like
Yes, yes.
chicken grit, that kind of thing?
I'm also diversifying there. We've used vermiculite. That's been our #1 use for vermiculite, but there's a product called Turfus that I just learned about. Chicken grit is another one that I'd like to try. Some species are not as picky as others, so I'm really honing in on the ones that are a little bit more difficult to get better at propagating those. So good suggestions for sure. I think there was another question online.
No, you already got it.
Okay, all right.
Well, then I
All right.
think, just want to say thank you. Thank you, Cory, for the presentation.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and go buy plants. Whether you're down in Vegas or up here, go and buy the plants to support the nurseries. And if you want to find the link to actually write to your legislators, you can go onto our website on the blog, because we wrote a blog about it, and there's a link there which will take you to the suggested scripts. Also gives you a link once you get into there to find out who your local Nevada legislator is too, so that you can either write to them or phone them up and read the script at them, which, yeah, but every little bit helps. Actually, it's all part of the deal. But go buy plants, and I hope everyone has a great summer, and hopefully we'll see some people at different events up here and down there and in the nurseries, and next meeting will be in September.
Thanks, everybody.
One small thing you mentioned, I know
Oh.
at the beginning, this is completely unrelated, but I have these two hair clips that are made by like a local artist out of some wood that I don't want. I don't really want.
Oh, well, we can share them up here, yeah.
And then.
Okay, we'll leave the meeting. So, okay, let's